Good morning to all of you. Thank you, Dr. Smith, for inviting me back to campus. It always feels so good to come here. I miss CCM so much, my colleagues, my CCM family, and it's really nice to be here today. It was very challenging to find a topic for today's last lecture. I know that not everybody loves math as much as I do, so I had to think about what might be interesting. And Bob Gebhardt, my husband, suggested that maybe I just come up, prove 3 theorems, smile at you all, and sit down. And that sounded good. 36 years ago, I moved to Morris County with my very young family. We moved from Rhode Island. Rhode Island didn't have diners. Maybe they do today, but they did not have diners in 1977. We couldn't wait to experience a New Jersey diner. We went to the Bud Lake Diner as soon as we possibly could. I was shocked when I received the placemat. The diner owner expected us to do math before we even ordered pancakes. I stole a copy of the placemat, and I'm going to give you a copy today. I've saved it all these years. I simply removed the ads. Bonnie, would you give everybody a copy of the Bud Lake Diner placemat from 1977? As you see, there are 3 problems on this placemat. They are the actual problems that were there. And I know that you would never have a problem doing any of them, solving all 3 and moving on to waffles, French toast, coffee, whatever. But I really liked these problems, and I'd like to direct your attention to the long word problem on the right side. I've used this problem many times in class, often when discussing applications or word problems in my developmental classes. It's really a fun problem. I have a good friend who teaches in a community college in Hawaii, and he uses the problem very often too. One day after he presented it to the class and talked about it a little bit, the class ended and he stepped into the elevator, and 2 of his students were right ahead of him in the elevator. And one said to the other, "Did you understand that problem?" And the other guy looked at him and he said, "That's an example of a flaw in the number system." There are no flaws in the number system. If anyone has a question on this problem, please see me after class today. Looking back over 27 years, there are so many highlights. The Math and Writing Center and our tutor training are really way above the rest in my memory. The Math Center and the Writing Center were truly one unit. The departments worked so well together. Faculty from many departments, actually many divisions, tutored and presented workshops in the Math and Writing Center on a variety of topics: math anxiety, test anxiety, many, many other topics. And often we would have those presentations at the end of the day. Sometimes faculty would simply present something of interest to them, to other faculty, and to the student tutors, and they were always very well attended. At the very end of every semester, we had a full day of reviews for all of the math courses. Student development always provided dinner for our students in those reviews. The late afternoon and the evening reviews were really the longest reviews and the most well-attended reviews, and the kids were hungry. They were here all day. Some of them would leave here and go on to a job. We wanted to feed the body as well as the mind, and it really worked. They were incredibly successful review sessions, and the collegial atmosphere in the Math and Writing Center was really amazing. It was wonderful, a great place to be. The Math Center, of course, was my special part. Patrick McElroy and Kuntal Panya were among our very first student tutors, and some of you remember, I'm sure Jeff, you remember both Patrick and Kuntal, many of you remember them. They were among our first peer tutors. They were peer tutors while they were here as students. After they graduated from CCM, they came back as paraprofessionals, and they also became Mr. and Mrs. Patrick McElroy. They continued at Lehigh, and they both entered the Lehigh doctoral program, and Kuntal actually finished the doctorate. She has her doctorate today from Lehigh, and Patrick has his master's. They stayed in touch with us for years. A few years ago, as you might remember, we had a 20-year reunion of the Math and Writing Center, and they came. They live in Texas now with their children, but they continue to keep in touch with many of us that they knew through the Math and Writing Center. Bruce Davis was one of my most memorable students. Bruce was in my pre-calculus class. Bruce was a quadriplegic, for those of you who didn't know Bruce. Bruce raised the level of participation in every class in which he was enrolled. He was another of our very first student tutors. He was truly one of the best tutors we'd ever had. His gentle humor and his ability to do mathematics made him so effective, and everyone wanted Bruce as a tutor. One day I was asking Bruce, what is it that you do that makes everyone love you so much as a tutor? And he said, Joan, I can't write. So I have to explain it to the student, and they have to write it. And I watch them write it, and I know pretty quickly whether or not they've understood what I said. Bruce was remarkable. Bruce continued to tutor for us until his health made it impossible to make that daily trip from Cheshire House. Bruce lost the battle a few years ago. So many members of the CCM community, so many faculty, students, tutors from the Math and Writing Center were there to pay their last respects to Bruce. I still miss Bruce every day. Another wonderful memory for me was the TME grant for women. Before we were BMET, we were TME, the Technology, Mathematics, and Engineering Division. And we applied for a grant for women with help from almost every area on campus. The collegiality again and again was remarkable. Everyone helped us get this grant. Doing the research of the grant, we were focusing on women who were attending college, and we discovered that returning women usually had to take developmental courses. Sometimes they didn't really need it, but they always, or not always, but often tested into developmental courses. And as we looked at the age, the percentage of women enrolled in basic math increased with their age. Often the returning women were in the developmental because of a lack of self-confidence, not a lack of ability to do computation. I well remember one of my students, Linda. Linda was mid-30s, a petite blonde, and her children were now in school full-time. So Linda decided it was her turn to earn a degree, and she came to the County College of Morris to do that. At that time, we offered basic math in a self-paced mode, only a self-paced mode, where students could move ahead as quickly or as slowly as they needed. Well, Linda was quick. She mastered common denominators and decimals and percents and word problems. She flew through the course. And she finally came to the very last unit. And at that time, the last unit was measurement. And measurement was just 12 inches equals 1 foot, 3 feet in a yard, 2,000 pounds in a ton. Not difficult at all. And she had done some very difficult problems up until then. So she moved through measurement the way she moved through everything else. And all of a sudden, she stopped. She came to the problem. Now, in those days, we borrowed paper from the IT department. Remember the long paper from the IT? Well, that was our scrap paper. And Linda went up and she took scrap paper, and she filled page after page with all these numbers. And I came over to her and I sat next to her and I looked at the problem. How much easier could it get? They just said 2,000 pounds is a ton. She has to change 3,000 pounds. She had done things that were very, very hard. How could this be so difficult? So I sat next to her and I said, Linda, this is honestly easier than so much of what you've done, so much of what you've mastered. What's the trouble? She said, have you ever tried to change 3,000 pounds to tablespoons? We were also fortunate through this TME for Women grant to enroll some very, very bright women. And in particular, I'm thinking of 6 women who were math, engineering, and computer science majors that we enrolled because of this grant. We paired each of these women with a mentor, a female engineer at Picatinny, and wow, did that work. 4 of the 6 women today have their doctorates in engineering and math. 2 of them, Kate Duncan, if you know her, and Kathy De Laurentiis, you may know her also, never stopped their CCM connection. They came back to us with their doctorates and taught for us, and I think for Venny also, in engineering and math as adjuncts. They continue to stay in touch with us. We have made an incredible contribution to the world of engineering and math with some of these people that we pulled in. Developmental math has always been very important to me. It's very near and dear to my heart. That's what so many of our students begin with, and then they go very far. I've had many students in basic math who went on to do great things, but they came here either because of a language problem or a self-esteem problem, and they started with basic math, but they got their self-confidence in that class and on they went. They flew after that. They soared. AMATIC, the American Mathematical Association of 2-year colleges, tells us that over 75% of the mathematics students at 2-year colleges come in very weak in mathematics. This does not surprise any math person in this room. We can see that all the time. However, while those numbers weren't surprising, we found some other numbers very surprising. The New Jersey Department of Higher Education, which no longer exists, the DHE, used to require very detailed reports from us on developmental math every single year, and we would spend time doing these reports at the end of the year. Well, we would also take the time to analyze that data because you had to collect so much for DHE. And that's when we discovered that the students at the County College of Morris who completed their remediation successfully, all of their remediation, had the same graduation rate as students who came in not needing any remediation at all. That was shocking to us. It showed us that we certainly were successful in our remedial program. We presented sessions, workshops, roundtable discussions of our tutor training and our basic skills programs at many conferences. We presented at the first year experience, at AMATIC, at National Council of Teachers of Mathematics, NCTM, many different organizations where we gave them our results. Over and over, after we would do our presentation, people would say, how do you get faculty to work together like that? That's amazing what you're telling us about the Math and Writing Center. The collaboration at CCM was truly above and beyond anything that we would present anyplace. We were all about student success, every one of us, and we were willing to take risks to try to achieve that. CCM has been and is a truly remarkable place. And so I say to you, the newer faculty, the younger faculty who have come and maybe don't even know any of these people of whom I speak, it's up to you now to continue the CCM collegiality, the CCM culture, to the focus on student success. And you'll be saying 25 years from now, hasn't it been a remarkable experience? Thank you. Are there any questions? Thank you. No questions, right? The $27 includes the tip, so you subtract 2, you don't add 2. You're welcome. But do the 9 dots. Bill, yes?
I have to know how many tablespoons for 3,000 pounds?
After class, Bill. Thank you.